Welcome to the first in-season 2023 edition of Sharing Sox. I am Southside Sox duty geezer Leigh Allan, usually the local correspondent, but I am now the Ohio Valley correspondent here in the capital of the free world in allergy pollens. And if you hear sneezes, that's me. But with me, my usual West Coast correspondent, but now downtown Chicago correspondent, as the Cherry Orchard is about to officially open at the Goodman Theater. Will is with us, sitting pretty downtown, away from storms. We got storms going around here at our daughter's house outside Cincinnati. So who knows what's going to happen in here. My apologies, because I'm going to be sneezing, but that's just allergies. No germs going out over the internet. Meanwhile,
well, all I can say is, as the downtown correspondent, you left at the wrong time. This downtown is abuzz with all things White Sox. Clearly, everybody is talking White Sox baseball. You can get tickets today for as low as $2. So they're clearly, we're just showing up in droves against the Giants on April 5th. We are going to have some decent weather moving forward, so maybe there will be some more fans at the ballpark. But yes, as of right now, it's still not
we're
feeling
recording
like baseball.
Wednesday morning after the off day in the middle of the San Francisco series, and mere hours, a couple hours after the announcement that Eloy is starting his trips to the injured list early this year.
He sure is.
Apparently,
We said he'd need to get off to a quick start, and he has. He has gotten injured right away. So that's
how? I mean, how? He's
no
DHing.
idea.
He has not been hitting triples where he has had a couple doubles. Maybe that is something. It's a hamstring. They say it's a minor hamstring, so he should only be out 2 or 3 weeks. One guy, I think, on our internal communications at Southside Sox said, well, maybe it's a good thing he's got a hamstring injury because now he's got 2 or 3 weeks where he can't get hurt worse. No,
That's true. That's true. It's in the whole scope of Eloy injury scenarios. This is the one we would hope for. Mild hamstring strain. I don't know when it happened. If it happened on the field, I'm guessing it didn't happen
Nobody
on
ever
the
said
field.
anything during the game. I watched. I know you haven't been able to watch the games because you've had rehearsals or shows, but I have. And there was no mention, oh, it looks like he pulled up on that one, or he never limped off anywhere. So who knows? Maybe he was, going to his room at a hotel. And
This could have been a reaching for the remote that was a little too far away in the hotel bed scenario, I guess. Uh, but yeah, Eloy already showing unfortunate signs of being injury prone yet again. Jake Berger uh, will be replacing him on the
interesting.
roster.
Jake had a very strong early spring. He was hitting 450-foot homers. Not so much later spring, kind of his story. So we'll see what he does when it counts. Gavin Sheets is in DHing today, but if there's a lefty at any time, I'm sure Berger will be in there, and he may be in at some other point. Maybe get in for Andrew Vaughn. They like to give him a day off because he's got perennial leg problems. So we'll see. But good for Jake. He gets another crack at the bigs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you said, he had a good early spring. He deserves another shot at the bigs, whether it's with the White Sox or not. It will be with the White Sox, and yeah, wish him well. Again, he's another puzzle piece that doesn't seem to really fit in the puzzle. But since Eloy is out, let's give him a shot. Let's see what happens. Let's just hope that
At the very least, if he can get some at bats in, he and Sheets can both get some at bats in. Then they're a little bit of a showcase for a
sure.
possible trade somewhere.
Yeah, if we can see some power out of Cease and some power out of Berger within actual Major League Baseball games, that would certainly help us. Again, the return on those guys is not going to be, we're not getting Juan Soto, but if they have a good showing, we could be looking at a slightly better prospect, or somebody who could play outfield if we needed them to. Which brings me to the next thing, which is Luis Robert looks like a major league outfielder.
That would be Luis Robert Jr. to you. It's
Correct.
hard to remember when you've been calling him by one name for 6 years. Uh, and I wonder about the junior. Yes, he has been, of all the things out of the first 5 games, that is the coolest.
Yes.
Because last year he looked like he had no interest in the game of baseball. And this year he is back, and my God, he has been incredible. There's not a day without an absolute top of the charts web gem, and sometimes multiples. And you wonder, is it just because the Hall of Famer baseball person is gone? Or is it because playing for the Cuban national team revived him?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Or third choice, because the name change. Did the time in Cuba and with the Cuban team maybe some kind of reconciliation with his father? Or I never heard they were estranged or anything, but maybe a tighter relationship with his father that brought on the junior and brought on the spirit again, or all three. I mean, who knows what, or he just feels better.
Or you're forgetting one very crucial thing, which is maybe Luis Robert Sr. is thinking about making a little bit of a comeback and didn't want to have any jersey issues with his son if they both ended up on the White Sox.
A reasonable point.
Reasonable, very reasonable. Yeah, I don't know what the reason is exactly. I think it's could be a factor of all of those things. But if the season ended today, there is no doubt who the Gold Glove winner is in the American League in center field. He has looked absolutely incredible. He has looked like everything we thought he was going to look like, and what he looked like very early on in some of his brief Rick Renteria era. He's incredible, and we always knew he could do this. We had seen flashes of it. We'd also seen flashes of him taking a routine fly ball to the coconut. But this Luis Robert Jr., I think, is what we always hoped he was going to be. He robbed his first home run ever, which was shocking to me.
Yeah, that's a surprise. I thought it'd be like number 14.
Yeah, absolutely. I could picture it in my head, but I'm sure I'm just picturing Dwayne Wise robbing the same home run over and over again in the Mark Burley perfect game. But Luis Robert is looking better. And on the same side, Yoán Moncada's bat is, I mean, he's a different ball player right now. Yoán Moncada is an absolute threat
And
in
the
the
same
lineup.
thing with wanting to play baseball, looking like he wants to play baseball.
With Moncada, I think we can lean a lot more into the playing for the Cuban national team. It lit a fire under his butt a little bit, just because we watched him start cranking during the World Baseball Classic. But again, I think Pedro Grifol is just a far better fit for this group of guys. I mean, anyone was a better fit than
Yeah, you can pick
LaRussa,
somebody off the street.
but I really do think Pedro Grifol is a player first manager. He is a relationship with players above everything else manager. Managing a baseball game is not necessarily rocket science. It is something that can easily be done horribly, which we've seen, but it should never be done horribly. And for me, when it comes to a manager, the number one thing is the mentality you're bringing in, the style of play, whether you're fundamentals forward or whether you're one of these let's take walks and hit homers and just depend on that. I think Grifol's number one thing is trying to relate to these young guys, especially the native Spanish speakers. I think it's just very good for this clubhouse. Moncada and Robert Jr. both looking like they want to be playing baseball again, both playing very good baseball. I don't expect it to go away. And then with Moncada, you have the added level of the guy just never seemed to have gotten his legs back after having long COVID, we know
yeah.
that he did. And we know that his legs were a problem. The guy was completely gassed going to second base. Well, you can argue that the White Sox are kind of out of shape the last 2 years, but you can't argue that Yoán Moncada was in such bad shape that he should be gassed going to second base. And that's what was happening. So I do think we are actually seeing recovery from that long COVID from Yoán Moncada. What's the number one thing to show you that you're recovering from that? Power in your bat again. And Yoán Moncada is, he's not blasting the ball 500 feet, but he is mildly swinging the bat into 370-foot home runs, and that's exactly what we need him to be able to do. With Yoán Moncada hitting with power again, and Luis Robert Jr. playing the field the way we know he can, which is going to influence
I
his
should have put in
bat as well.
a fourth thing on Luis, fourth possibility, that he was so disgusted by what he had on each side of him in the outfield for the last 2 years. And now he's got real outfielders on each side. Then, while Ron Cuban's doing well, Oscar Colás hitting very well to start. That probably won't stay as high as the league gets used to what to throw to him. And so he had one at bat where they threw 3 straight sliders under his hands, and he was just lost. He didn't come within 10 feet of any of them. And that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But he made one real nice, it was a game-saving kind of catch. It wasn't a Luis Robert Jr. catch, but it was a catch that only a major league right fielder makes. It would not have been made in the last 2 years. So that's really good too. And Benintendi's a good outfielder, although he's the one who's had one screw up. But
I'm going to add in a fifth factor that plays off of your fourth factor, which is also Oscar Colás. You now have this young, potentially elite Cuban talent coming up on the team. Who's he going to look to? He's going to look to Luis Robert Jr. and Yoán Moncada for his work ethic, for how he should act while he's in the major leagues, for the effort he should be putting in on and off the field.
Yeah, because Jose is not here anymore.
Jose's not there anymore. So who had to take that job? That's Luis and that's Yoán. And I think that they have. I think that they are showing Oscar Colás, this is what you do when you get to this level. They didn't have to do that the last couple years with a manager who did not care, and Jose was kind of the leader for that. But it's different when you have young guys showing other young guys what to do when they get to this level. I would not be surprised at all if that has also lit something under Yoán and Luis Robert Jr., that they want to set a good example for Oscar Colás, and in doing so, you're going to be a better baseball team. So it's a win-win for Yoán and Luis to approach the game with a new energy and show Oscar Colás, their work ethic. Because I do believe that Yoán Moncada and Luis Robert Jr. are elite talents. I do believe that. There's a lot of Moncada haters out there from the last couple of years. I have never lost faith in Yoán Moncada. I have just always thought this guy has all the tools. He just needs the right leadership. And now, not only do I think he has the right leadership, but he has a young Cuban player coming up behind him that's looking up to him. And that helps a lot. I know from my playing days, if you had a younger guy on the team who was kind of looking for it, you wanted to show them how hard you work so that they would work as hard and your team would be great. So I think it's a mix of all these factors. And I think it could certainly be the type of situation that really pays off for the White Sox moving forward. If these guys can stay healthy, which I also think they're going to make a better effort to stay healthy because of these factors.
That's certainly a big question, though.
If they can stay healthy, I think the White Sox are a legitimate threat. Now, I'm saying that as we sit 2-3 after a very embarrassing home opener against the Giants, which was pathetic with a capital P. But moving forward, I am seeing pretty good things coming from the White Sox, which we will, I think, dive more into in the second half of this.
While we're here, though, in Cuba, the other player who has shown, and this was kind of anticipated, I think, by the end of the shift, but who's hitting better is Yasmani Grandal. Now,
certainly,
his catching is, if anything, worse than ever. It's miserable. I know you haven't been able to watch the games, but on the first game when ESPN was doing it, he had a pass ball or wild pitch, but one that definitely should have been blocked that gave up a run. And these announcers were so stupidly interpreting. They're going, well, he's blocked all the rest really, really well. There was nobody on base. Cease had given up one base runner before then. He wasn't blocking it. Yeah, I guess he was blocking. It didn't matter. When it mattered, he didn't. And he's got 3 or 4 that have gotten by him when it mattered already this year. He just can't catch anymore. He's thrown out one base runner, which is amazing, but that's 1 out of 7, which is not really great. Yes, pitcher's fault too, or even mainly, but still it's his job.
Yeah, I think also the big factor with Grandal is, he's putting the bat on the ball a little bit more. But once his legs go, which they will go once it gets a lot hotter, and after catching 60 games, he's going to lose that power in his legs. He's going to lose that strength. He's going to be gassed a lot easier. And that's when the bat goes. And if Yasmani Grandal doesn't have power, then you don't need Yasmani Grandal, because he's never going to be hitting 355 with, 40 doubles kind of guy.
Sevy's got a 2.333 OPS right now.
Hey, Sevy's
the best in the
making the case
leagues.
for Sevy. Sevy is doing everything Sevy often does everything Sevy can to take the job away from Yasmani Grandal. We just keep giving him back to Yasmani Grandal.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Moncada is for real. It's going to go back some, just because it's inevitable. You can't hit this well that long. It just doesn't happen.
But you can for spells. Yeah.
He'll hit well. Robert, I think he can field this well forever. Just hope he doesn't get hurt. I don't have faith in Grandal. The same as you. I think he'll hit well until the knee goes. Either of the knees, because he's got 2 bad knees.
Which could be in a week. It's not even like this is something we're anticipating for August. This could be something that comes into play relatively soon. Let's hope it doesn't, but yeah. We should take our break here. We will come back and we will talk about where the White Sox are at this point.
Pitching. I think we have to talk pitching.
We'll talk pitching, and then I also, right when we come back, I just want to talk a little bit about these rule changes and what we have seen so far with our tiny sample of Major League Baseball. So hang in there. We'll be right back on Sharing Sox. Welcome back to Sharing Sox. First half, we talked about the resurgence of Cuban dominance from White Sox players. I want to touch a little bit to start on rule changes and the effects we've seen. I personally have loved it. I think it's been very exciting. We're seeing a lot of games come in around the 230 mark. We're seeing some come in around the 210 mark. We're seeing high-scoring games come in around the 310 mark. I think that's great. I think a high-scoring game being 3 hours and 10 minutes is fine.
As I think was even said by the commissioner's office, the object is not so much to shorten the game as to shorten the downtime in games, to not have wasted time in there. As long as things are going on, nobody cares if the games go 3 hours or 4 hours, if it's really 100%. Exciting all the time.
100%.
It's the Nomar Garcia Pera hour and a half before we get up to the plate thing that just bores people to death.
A 2-1 game, which historically, for some reason in recent Major League Baseball, would go 3.5 to 4 hours. Those games are now coming in at the under 230 mark, which is exactly what should happen. We're not seeing any less baseball right now. We're seeing the exact same amount of baseball.
We're seeing more of it.
That's how baseball works.
Seeing more of it because of stolen bases and
right.
because
I just mean in terms of ball being in play and the time spent playing the game of baseball, we're actually seeing the exact same amount of time. I think it's great. I think a high-scoring game coming in over 3 hours is perfectly wonderful for fans. I think a low-scoring game coming in at 2.5 is also wonderful for fans. The only other rule I really want to touch on right now is one you just mentioned, which is stolen bases. We are seeing some very exciting things with stolen bases. I just want to point out the first at bat of the season, which was Ronald Acuna Jr., got on first base, clearly intending to steal any bag he possibly can. And the thing that was so interesting about it is he gets on base, They throw over twice. You see Acuna Jr. flash a 2 to the dugout, which tells you he knows he can just go. And they had no chance. No chance. Throw got off quick, still no chance. With these new pickoff rules, the bases being a little shorter, I think we could see someone like Ronald Acuna Jr. easily hit the 60 stolen base mark, maybe the 70 stolen base mark.
I think one thing that will change some with that, because I saw both a couple times from our pitchers, but more from opposing pitchers in the first 5 games, wasted throws to first, where they would do that, what has been going on for years. You just kind of throw over once just to kind of remember where first base is. That's got to stop. I mean, from now on, every throw you go over there has to be with meaning. Whether you get them or not, you mean it. So that one will disappear, and I think that just is going to happen. That'll probably happen next 2 weeks or so.
I think that's a darn good thing. That throws to first
that's
base
a time waster.
To be meaningful.
That's where the fans boo if it's the visiting team that does it. Let's get into 2 and 3. Going into the Houston series, my feeling was, well, if we come out 2 and 2, that's going to be pretty darn good. And then, of course, after Cease's incredible performance in Game 1, you think, wow, we could even do 3 and 1. Which is exactly what Steve Stone was saying during the telecast of Game 4. But it's not as impressive to go 2 and 2 in Houston when the Tigers just went 2 and 0 in Houston and are going for the sweep today. Houston has been without their superstar second baseman, without their superstar. I don't know where does Brantley usually play, left or right? Right fielder, I think.
Right fielder initially, but he's a left fielder now for sure.
But I mean, 2 of their big stars. The Game 4, for some reason, apparently he had some little tick thing going on. Yordan Alvarez was held out, even when he was the tying run in the 9th inning. I totally don't comprehend why Dusty wasn't pinch hitting there, but so be it. And of course, they're also missing the colors. They're missing Presley. Presley was obviously hurt when he pitched in the opener and never showed up again. Whereas the Sox, until today, were fine, except for relief pitching, which we need to get to. All right, the starting pitching.
Yeah, I mean,
start with starting pitching and go to I want to get to our number one, hands down. I looked at the stats. There's no question about it. Our best reliever, and he's got to be the closer from here on out, and that is Hanser Alberto. He's got the only absolutely clean inning of the bullpen staff so far.
Hey, I'm open to anything, and clearly so is Grafal, so let's do it.
Somebody said, I hadn't noticed this, but somebody said that his 61-mile-an-hour pitch was called a fastball, and then his 69 was called a changeup.
And that is tough to face. That's tough to face. When you're seeing a 61-mile-an-hour fastball, and then he hits you with that faster changeup, that's turning baseball upside down, and that's the kind of innovation the White Sox need this year.
Meanwhile, starting pitching, Dylan Cease was super, and we'll see in a few hours if that was a one-off. I doubt it's a one-off. He can't maintain that pace all year, but he can be excellent all year. The other 3 starters in Houston all came out of it with good stats. But if you look at the peripherals, and I'm not downplaying anybody here, but at the peripherals, the ERA for Lance Lynn was, because he did 2 runs in a little over 5, so it's 3 point something. His FIP was 6 something. For the new person, his ERA was 0, but his FIP was in the high 3s. The opposite for Lucas Giolito. His FIP was down around 2, and it just that passed the eyeball test too, because the hits off Giolito, he was having bad luck. Lynn and the jerk were having very good luck defensively. Giolito's having terrible luck. There was a little pop-ups that were falling in, or dribblers that made it through a hole in the infield. The only thing with Giolito on the negative side is he was only hitting 92 or 93.
Well, another thing on the negative side is the pitch count was pretty high.
I'm gonna write a piece for Friday on pitch counts, because pitcher efficiency is incredibly bad for ever and ever.
It's my number one griping point on this
unbelievable.
podcast.
He was over 19 pitches an inning. Lynn was over 19 pitches an inning. Jerk guy was 18 or so pitches in, and then Kopech was 16 home runs in inning. Who knows with Michael Kopech?
Yeah,
And they were talking a lot about tipping, which may well be part of it because guys did look like, well, we're ready. But it wasn't just that, because normally a starting pitcher kind of eases into a game, a power pitcher. And if he's a 96 to 98 guy, which Kopech is around a 98 guy at peak, right?
yeah, for sure.
He would ease in at 92 or 93. And then even if Verlander does this, Verlander pitches the first inning at 92 and the second inning at 94. And by about the fourth inning, he's hitting 99 and 100. Power pitchers are pretty much all like that. They're just loosening up. He reversed it. He was at 96 in the first inning. And as it went on, he was 92. He had a fastball at 89. Now, maybe it's because he was desperate for control, but I'm worried that it's more than just he was tipping and that something's wrong.
Because yeah, I mean, it wasn't just tipping, because you don't have to tip if you're going to groove them all down the middle for four consecutive
and it did occur to me, if all the pitchers I've known in my almost 3/4 of a century of watching baseball, the one who tipped the absolute most of any pitcher was Mariano Rivera. He's going to throw you a cutter. You know, he's going to throw you a cutter. He'll hit a fastball every 20 pitches or so, but basically, he's going to throw you a cutter. If you get 5 pitches, you're going to get 5 cutters. And correct. Best of luck at ever hitting one of them, fella.
Yeah, Kopech is a huge concern. A huge concern. I can't say I have any other huge concerns after 5 games.
Well, you better be concerned about the bullpen.
Right. Well, I mean, I would say I don't have any new concerns after 5 games, except for Kopech. Kopech looked horrible.
that was sad. That was really sad.
It felt like an injury thing. It could be a pitch clock thing that he just. I mean, he was a pretty slow guy to get to the plate before, and that's why he was hitting, 98 to 100 was because of that revamping up time in between pitches that nobody gets anymore. Hopefully that's not what it is, because that rule is obviously not going away anytime soon. But to me, it reeked of some sort of injury or some sort of mental scenario, because that inning where he gave up the 4, I did watch that game.
Well, his head started going lower and lower and lower.
Yeah,
his chin was down on his chest.
I mean, he got to a point in body language where I could have told you the next pitch was going to be a home run. It just did not look good. But let's talk about this bullpen, if you can call it that.
The bullpen has pitched 16 1/3 innings and given up 18 earned runs, for an ERA of just a hair under 10. Now, for the grand slam from Ruiz, but even if you take that away, it's 15 1/3 and 14 earned runs, which isn't a heck of a lot better. And again, as I say, our superstar in the bullpen is Hanser Alberto, who, he's pitched before. He pitched 10 innings last year, I think.
He did. He pitched for the Dodgers.
He was their go-to guy. But yeah, it's terrible. And nobody was good. I mean, some guys got some people out, but basically nobody was good. You were watching it and going, this isn't going to end well. And then somebody take a wild swing. I mean, you get Bregman was just in some kind of bizarre rut. So anybody could throw it past. And I could throw it past Bregman. He was just not going to hit a ball. But I mean, nobody looked good.
Yeah, and I think it's, just these numbers you're throwing out of 18 runs and 16 innings, it's only been 5 games, and we've only lost one of them horribly, which just tells you that the bullpen is doing nothing well. The fact that our starters, I mean, who's got the worst ERA for our starters right now, other than Kopech? Lance Lynn?
But it'd be a 3.68 or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's telling you right now the starters, other than Kopech, aren't giving up a lot of runs. And it's also telling you that the bullpen is what teams are feasting off of. And you got a huge problem if you're going to have high pitch counts that take your starters out by the fifth, and the opposing team knows that they're going to get 4 innings of
Well, especially
meat
this
and
early in the
potatoes.
season, because almost all starters are out after 5 or certainly after 6. 1 inning probably sooner than it would be later in the season. Yeah, I mean, it's been terrible. I like the idea of not having a designated closer or a guy who's got this vibe to it. But nobody, and Graveman sort of had a decent inning, then had a bad one. Raylo, he has not looked good at all trying to come into a pressure situation. I mean, he only got out of that last game in Houston because they did not pinch hit Alvarez. I'm positive if they pinch hit Alvarez, it was a home run.
Yeah, for sure.
Unless they just walked him to get the base because the guys after him. Houston had no lineup after him.
Right.
You
definitely just walk Alvarez in that scenario. Yeah. But yeah,
even to load the bases and put the winning run at the plate, it's the better move to make, like they used to do with Bonds.
100%. 100%.
But at any rate, the bullpen is now. We theoretically have Garrett Crochet coming back. Certainly no later than the end of May. If they don't rush him back too much and it'd be bad, which means maybe you can get rid of Diekman at that point. And of course, Liam is sitting in there saying, God knows if anybody can do it, Liam Hendriks can do it. But he just started his last round of chemo. To be back in June, he might make it. I mean, the guy is so super tough.
Liam Hendriks is the workhorse of all workhorses. So if there's a guy who can do it, but cancer's cancer. You don't get to just decide when you're ready to come back from that. So hopefully that is all progressing very well for him, and he can get back out on the field as soon as he wants to and is able to. But until then, I mean, there's nobody in that bullpen doing anything. And
except Hunter.
And I would chalk that up to, well, it's early in the season, but I don't have quite that level of forgiveness with guys who are tasked with throwing 1 inning. When it comes to starting pitchers, you're like, okay, higher pitch counts, you got to be out by the 4th or 5th. Well, it's only April 5th. That happens a lot of the time in the history of Major League Baseball, that your starters don't throw very long early on. Bullpen guys who are only tasked with 1 inning, you should pretty much come out firing after spring training. You should be very much able to throw 1 solid inning of baseball after spring training. The bullpen right now, I mean, if I had a hope more than anything for the White Sox at this exact moment, it would be that Sheets and Berger both just absolutely mash the ball over the next few weeks, so we can leverage that into some sort of even middling relief pitcher, because right now we don't have middling relief pitchers. We have bottom of the barrel going out there. And that can all change.
Even Bummer. I don't think Bummer has a run on his record, but he also didn't stop an inherited runner from scoring.
Exactly. And Bummer, he's one of those guys where great potential, could be great. We haven't really seen greatness in a while, and I can't put a lot of, I can't put a lot of weight on the idea that Aaron Bummer is going to come back and be this great pitcher. He's older. He's been hurt most of the time. I just don't really see that as something we can really put a lot of stock into. I think our bullpen needs help from the outside. There's really no way around it. Do I think we're going to get that help from the outside? No, but I think we need it.
Could be with Crochet and Hendriks, but that's a long way off now. You're going to be far enough in the season. You could be in deep doo-doo by the time at least both of them are ready to go. And even then, you still need more help out the bullpen. It's really not looking good at all.
It's not. It's the low point. For being as expensive as they are, that's a pretty brutal low point to have.
And of course we had the highest paid bullpen in the history of the world last year, and probably the only thing that would change that this year is that there were some ungodly reliever contracts that went out over the course of the offseason. I don't know if that would move us back to second place or something, but Yeah, I mean it's
Yeah, I mean, we could be in the scenario of giving a relief pitcher $65 million and then he gets hurt jumping up and down at the World Baseball Classic. But I think we are paying mightily for some very, very bad relief pitching at this time.
here's the question though, come awards time. Will Liam Hendriks coming back, if he makes it back in June, cost Hanser Alberto the Fireman of the Year award?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm rooting for Hanser, obviously.
Maybe Liam could set up for Hanser. You know, if you based Liam Hendriks at 101 miles an hour and the fastball moving all over the place, and then your next pitch was 61.
I mean, in high school, that's kind of what they did with me on the reverse. They would have a starter out there throwing in the 60s the whole game and then bring in a guy who could throw 80 at the end. It's not going to happen. I don't have the faith in Hanser's relief career that you do. That being said, Hanser, keep it up. Don't rule it out. Prove me wrong. I know you're listening. The whole team listens this season as part of their contract. So sorry we were a little harsh on you guys, but it's very early. I'm very hopeful still for the Chicago White Sox. I'm going to stick to my guns after week 1 and say this is still a potential 90-win ball club. But I'm going to put an even bigger asterisk that says if we get relief pitching of any kind. Of any kind. That is all the time we have for this week. Do you have any final thoughts before we log off?
No, of course, I did not share your 90s. I know that 538, which is our guru source on predictions, went from predicting 81 to now 80-82. They're gradually fading
slipping backwards.
And of course, Kopech, if Kopech's hurt, that's another. Or if if it was just tipping, they can cure that. That'll be cured before the next time he comes out. But I don't think it was just tipping. Just guys who, there was a guy who came in as a pinch runner who hit a homer often.
That's not just tipping pitches. And based on what I've looked at online, I'm not seeing any of the videos of Giants guys whispering to the other Giants guys that he's showing something. But that's all the time we have. We have Cease versus Webb today, so this should be a good day for a solid pitching matchup between aces. Let's go White Sox, and we will see you next week here on Sharing Sox.